Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Linux user group. It's the first Linux user group of November. We're very close to Christmas. It's just 2 weeks from today is Thanksgiving. So, um, do with that information what you will. It's going to be January before you know it. All right. So, we're going to be talking about Rust today, as in the programming language. It's going to be entertaining. I will freely admit that I know very little about the actual programming language. I've written a little bit of code in Rust, not a lot. Python is my language, at least it has been lately. So if we were talking about Python, I'd have more to say. But we're going to have some things to talk about. So the first question I have for the panel here today is, what is your general opinion on Rust? Good, bad, the devil, the savior? What you got, Steve? Go ahead.
The reason I was the first one who raised his hand before you asked the question is this subject came at the correct moment, because Zero Linux has adopted Rust, since we already built an application that has been out in the wild. Well, not wild, but specifically for Zero Linux users, which is the fingerprint sensor app. It was built in Rust. I am not the developer. I know nothing about writing code. I'm just a bash scripter. But since Zero Linux has now its own and only team member who develops in Rust. So we developed this app in Rust, and the upcoming welcome tool will be written in Rust GTK, of course, because it's the safest GUI compared to Qt and QML. I did ask my friend why Rust. Well, Rust apparently is a safer language. It's not the holy grail of languages. It's one of the safer, not safest, just safer languages to write in. And apparently, it's very easy to program with. So that's why he has been able to create so many applications in so little time, compared to C or any other language. I don't agree 100% with that, because Python has been the de facto standard for a long time, so a lot of people know it. But I think Rust comes second after Python. But it has one advantage over Python. It's a memory safe language. And it's what apparently the future is all about. So I don't have anything against it. I'm not someone who's going to say a language is good or bad. Or better than any other language. I'm just saying that it's got advantages. It's got disadvantages, just like any other language. But it's what everyone is using today, because it's the shiny new kid on the block. But it's nice.
War Thunder?
Yeah, I assume you can hear me okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Um, yeah, Rust seems pretty cool. I think it's definitely the new kid on the block when it comes to a lot of younger people. I think are getting involved in it and whatnot. I've messed around with Cosmic. I haven't made too many Rust things myself because I'm not really a developer either. I'm just somebody who messes around in their house. But it does seem like, from the experiences and stuff, while Rust's, it does seem like it's naturally more resistant to bad decisions in terms of memory management. I have kind of noticed, like using like the new Pop OS and whatnot, it does seem to use more memory. But again, that makes sense. If you're being more memory safe, then you're probably not doing things that would free up memory too soon, or doing things that would be, considered dangerous. I don't typically have an issue with it. In fact, like I said, I'm not a developer, but from the things I've seen about it, from the few apps I've built with cargo and whatnot, everything seems pretty well documented, pretty straightforward. So I think it's pretty good.
Fraggle? You gotta unmute yourself, bud.
Right. Yeah, that thing. Um, just to start out and correct a little bit of what Steve said, Python is considered memory safe as well, for the most part. It has automatic or like you don't have to like manually control memory management or anything like that. But as far as like taking over the kernel or anything like that, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. Rust just does not have the like direct hardware access or control that C has. It's not as fast or anything like that. Um, there are some things that are getting replaced, like certain drivers and stuff like that. I think they're working on, or it's in testing, like an NVMe driver with Rust, but it's a bit slower. Not that anybody would really notice slower NVMe access speed. I mean, it's pretty fast storage speed anyway. But um, yeah, it's mostly just for new code in the kernel as opposed to replacing old code. I think if anybody really wanted to, they would have to do like a complete rewrite or create a new kernel with Rust. It'll never replace the actual Linux kernel. So
I'm gonna butcher your name, Yahia. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, close enough. So basically, I'm not a developer, and I would love to hear a developer's point of view on this. But I mostly do most of my programming in either Python or C. And the obvious way, Python for things that are quick and dirty, and C for things that I want to squeeze every ounce of performance out of that program. So basically, I found that Rust strikes a perfect balance. Now, I must have a disclaimer here. I actually didn't go through with learning a lot of Rust, but I do like the easiness of the package management, managing packages, managing like libraries and stuff when writing in C was a nightmare, especially because I started off on Windows and then moved over to Linux. On Linux, it's much easier. You're having a distro-wide package manager and all that and all of this. But basically, I found that Rust gives me the flexibility of cargo, especially. I very much like cargo. Cargo gives me the easiness of pip with Python and gives me a C-like performance without all the hassle of managing C libraries.
Yeah, when you have to deal with GCC and all that stuff, especially when you have to update it, those things are always the worst. Greg, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so speaking strictly as a user, right, versus a developer, to me, I want good software to be developed. So I want developers to use what makes that most possible. And if some of them think Rust is the way to go, and I think there are good reasons to do that, I don't really go in for religious wars when it comes to the computer stuff, which maybe makes me a bit of an outlier. But the kernel's 34 years old, and I think it was Fraggle's point, they're not, unless somebody's going to refactor it from the start, it's going to be a combo of C and Rust going forward. And to me, that's fine. Let Rust do what it does. Let's do what it does best and move on. I know there's been some people kind of poking holes at the new Rust sudo and things like that because, there's CVEs. Well, there's been dozens of CVEs in the traditional sudo over the years. That's what happens with software. You develop, you do the best you can. There's a problem, somebody identifies it, you fix it. If the guy who can fix it knows Rust, then go for it, because I'm not writing that code and I need somebody to do it so I can continue to be a Linux user. So use what works best, man. If and Rust seems to be, it's not like people say it's new, but it's like, how do they put it? It's an overnight success, 10 years in the making, right? It's been around. And it seems like it's a good path forward to get new developers into an area where we need them and haven't been getting them. I mean, how many people are coming out of school or just self-training as C gurus? Not many.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, C is still well taught in school. It's not like COBOL or anything. Um, you brought up the core utils being replaced. I think that's where I'll direct my next question. What do you guys think of the whole moving away from GNU core utils and moving to more Rust-based utils. Because you're right, Greg, that the sudo has had CVEs for a long time. There are some that were like there for like 20 years, and it took them a long time to fix them. That's why I always just thought that they should just use doas, because doas is so much. I mean, it's like 200 lines of code or whatever it is. Not very many. It's a very small program. I'm sure they have reasons for not doing that, but for me, doas always seemed to be more apt to stay secure than sudo is. So, what do you guys think of the move to away from GNU? Steve, go ahead.
First, I'm going to properly welcome a fellow Middle Easterner. ازيك يحيى كله تمام؟ من
أنا
مصر
تمام.
من مصر.
مصر. اسكندرية.
أيوه. So the next thing I was going to say to Greg's point was, yes, it's not truly the new kid on the block. It's 10 years in the making, but now that more people are using it, it has shown it has more light shined on it. Yeah, and to your point, Matt, what we think about the core utils being replaced, it's nothing wrong with that. The thing I see wrong by doing that so early by Ubuntu is it's a little bit less cooked. Though they did the right thing by replacing them in the non-LTS version of Ubuntu. So basically, they put it on the right version of Ubuntu. They didn't put it on an LTS, but still, a lot of people are complaining that the Rust core utils are a lot slower than the C-based ones, the original ones. So people are I see a lot of people saying, nobody asked for that. Why are you doing it? Well, simply because this is what the language that's being used by default from now on. Why stick in the past? It's nothing. There's nothing wrong with that. People who hate on Rust just for the sake of hating is not right. But it's not mature enough yet to be to replace the core utils with it. Now they did it on a testing version, which is not the LTS version, which is correct. But I saw also a post to your point about someone wanting to replace apt with a Rust-based version of apt, and there's no choice. He left no choice for the users. He's like, nope, moving forward, we're going to be using a Rust version of apt. Now that is wrong. I don't agree with this person. So Rust is still in development. It's good in some places, bad in others. So in my eyes, it's not yet mature enough to be used de facto with and replace core stuff of the system with. It still needs time. That's my thought.
More Thunder?
Yeah, I was kind of going to say, and again, like I said, I'm not a developer, but if Rust is actually solving issues with the core utils, that's one thing. And I would love to hear somebody's more technical knowledge about that. But it seems like the Ubuntu may have jumped the gun a little bit with the core utils, because the Rust utils aren't necessarily feature complete yet. And I do appreciate, like I said, they're doing it on a non-LTS. A non-LTS for Ubuntu has always been, we're going to screw around and find out, and then by the LTS, we're going to rip out what doesn't work, and then we'll try it again later. So yeah, I guess applause on that. But I'm just trying to think, and it made sense. I read a little more technical on the apt Rust dependency, where they're trying to use it in apt makes a little bit more sense because of where it's parsing data, and there's opportunities there for there to be issues that Rust could help solve. And I think that's a little bit different than some of the places in the core utils where they're trying to replace with the Rust core utils. In my personal opinion, I think for 2604, they should probably pull Rust utils and come back for the next LTS. I've seen a lot of issues. I just think they're a little too ahead of the curve, but it is canonical. Maybe they'll figure it out. or they'll just ship 2604, a train wreck like they shipped 2404. It's possible.
I don't think that they're going to go back. From the things I've heard from some of the developers on podcasts and such, they're pretty well set into going this direction. And they'll just do any fixing that they need to in point releases. I don't know if that's the right move or not, but that seems to be the direction that they're going. Greg, go ahead. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I remember to put my hand down at least. I was listening to another Linux-based podcast where they were, they're talking to Shuttleworth, and Canonical. They know they're rushing it, I think, and he kind of is like, I'm doing it on purpose. Like they're trying to force the issue, which you could say whether that's good or bad. My thing with the core utils is, one, it's GNU Linux, man, and we're kicking out the GNU part, and it's like, are they broke, right? Are we fixing it, or are they going to run faster? If they run faster, that's awesome. I don't know that they're memory unsafe now, right? Like, I mean, they've been handcrafted and curated over the course of decades. If there's nothing wrong with them, I don't know why we want to just rewrite them for the sake of rewriting them. But I think if there's good reasons to do it, go ahead. The one thing that when I saw that they were doing that, I thought, boy, we thought people, forked stuff before. There's gonna be a lot of, I think, wars over this will be the new system D, right? Like, oh, we don't use that. We've got the GNU core utils. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully people could just settle down. I mean, I don't know how often. Anyway, my thing with it is, like, I felt like, LS, CD, all that stuff, like you use them all the time and they just work. Like, what was wrong with them that needed to be fixed so bad? Is kind of where I'm at. Not, some stuff is feature complete and just needs to be done when it's done.
It'll be interesting to see what Mint does, because and Cosmic. I think Cosmic will take the Rust versions because obviously they're very Rust forward. Mint's much more conservative when it comes to adopting things that come from Ubuntu. So it'll be interesting to see once the LTS comes out, if Canonical sticks with this, which I think they will. It'll be interesting to see what Mint does, because that will kind of give you a flag on whether or not they think that it's actually ready, and if there's a purpose behind it. You'll be yet another thing that they have to do in order to make Mint not Ubuntu, which will be hilarious, but it'll be interesting. Drew, go ahead.
Let D-Dubs go and then come back to me if you don't mind.
Okay, D-Dubs, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. The one issue I have with the GNU core utils is the people that manage that, the committee, are very gatekeeper-ish. For example, I want to say probably on the order of more than 10 years, there was a submission to add a progress bar to things like copy and move. And they refused to do it. They're like, nope, it's good. It doesn't need to be fixed. So they're very guarded about changes and updates. I'm not like a Rust enthusiast. Oh, I think Rust will solve every problem. But what I do see is that the utils that I use today that are redone in Rust have features that are not in the core utils. And so whether it's like find, I used to use the standard find all the time. If you've ever run FD, first of all, it's a lot easier to use, but it is way faster because it actually is multi-threaded. Then you can say, well, sure, we can go do that to find. Okay, you've had 20 years. So again, there's this kind of change in philosophy from what has worked, and I understand the value of tested software. But a lot of things have changed since those core utils were done. And if they're not willing to move forward, then power to Rust. If somebody said, I want to redo it in C++ because I want to make it better, okay. You know, as long as you don't use Python, I'm down with it.
So D-Dubs, you think that the move is less about the language and more about, it's more of like a X11 to Wayland type conversion where they just need to start over fresh so that there's new blood and new ideas.
Pretty much. And then at the same time, you do get the benefits that Rust offers. You know, also, I think in Ubuntu's case, they're looking at, excuse me, the U.S. government and other governments having a preference to Rust because of its, you know, they bought into its memory safe. So there's a business benefit to them, I believe, which is one of the reasons they're pushing forward. My opinion.
Yeah, I think that you might have a point. Their GitHub page does mention Rust an awful lot, though. Like they're very proud of the fact that they're doing it in Rust, but they have some other goals, things like matching the output and better error messaging and stuff like that. Some maybe their idea is to do some better features. I'm very cautious about promises being made about future, features, because
Look at bat compared to cat. Look at, like I
Yeah.
say, D compared to find. Look at any of the replacement utils, even the ones for LS,
yeah,
and they are way better. Again, I don't say that's because they're in Rust. I say that's because just people have
different ideas.
Yeah, they looked at it and they go, well, this is great. You know, compatibility has to be there, and I'm going to do it in Rust.
Someone earlier mentioned that one of the reasons why they might do this is because of speed, and just the back of my head is like, if they really cared about speed, they'd use Duaz. I keep coming back to Duaz because it just seems like that's where I would go. Drew, go ahead.
See, now I wish I'd gone first, because now it's going to sound like I'm like chiming in or piling on and stuff like that, because I was going to maybe make that connection between Xorg and Wayland. It's like, okay, so are we at a point where it's like I can't rewrite it and it can't be maintained over the 40 years of cruft that's kind of like come up, and you want to rewrite? I mean, I don't, I've worked in a software company where, there's, multiple, so 2 million lines of code, let's say. And, and you ask one of the senior developers, hey, what could you do if you had to do a rewrite? What could you actually save as far as codes? What a code savings? He's like, we could do this whole thing in 200,000 lines. And it's like, wow, that's a big, and then having to do, if you make that change and have consistent code throughout, it's going to be a lot easier to fix bugs and things like that, because it's going to, and not to mention Rust. One of the benefits of Rust actually is its error system. You can run the whole thing and it gives you multiple errors. It doesn't stop at the first one. It tells you what all the error, at least that's my understanding of it. I could be very wrong about that. But overall, you're basically, it could be one of those things where, like Xorg and Wayland, it's just time. It's just time. And since Rust is so widely adopted, maybe it's the next one, it's that new generation of programmers that's out there that is, that's all about this particular programming language.
Yeah. It we're going to talk more about it being a meme later, but it does feel like it is a younger person's thing, where the older generation is like, if it ain't C, it ain't good.
If it ain't C, it ain't shit.
Well, and the thing is, like, it happened with Python too. When Python first came around, there was a lot of Python fanboys like, oh my god, this is the next thing, and then everybody realized that Python has its downfall, it has its flaws. I think Rust will probably be the same way. Eventually, there'll be something next. Greg, go ahead.
So, at the risk of making or being reasonable in a discussion about Linux, D-Dubs and Just a Guy have convinced me that my old man yells at cloud position is incorrect. And yeah, especially, and D-Dubs, where you got me was when you were talking about the progress bar and CP, and I'm like, yeah, that's always freaking bothered me. So yeah, man, these things probably do need a refresh, and especially if that community is gatekeepery, which I just really am not big on. I mean, you got to have a little bit of like, you got to be a little bit careful, but like, yeah, if they need to be changed, and maybe sometimes it's best to just start with a clean sheet of paper. And right now, your clean sheet of paper is usually going to be written on with Rust, so go for it. So this has been a productive discussion for me. I've actually changed my mind about something. Thank you.
Black Don, go ahead.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like the kind of on the X11 Wayland type of thing. The thing that I would be, I guess, fearful of is that they don't get everything kind of figured out the first go around, and not having it like be where you switch to Wayland and then we have like problems for a year trying to get things to work. I'd rather just be like, draw it out longer to have everything work when it actually does make the change, instead of just like going straight into it. So that's kind of I don't really care whether it's Rust or not, to be honest with you, but I just want it to work.
Yeah, I think that the feature parity is going to be a big deal for a lot of things. Like it gotta match, especially if you're going to drop it into a major distribution like Ubuntu. You have to match what was already there, and if you don't, you're going to have problems. But you guys remember that Ubuntu did this with Wayland too, like in 2017 or something like that. They went Wayland first, like they completely switched to Wayland, and it was not ready. like people thought it wasn't ready in like 2021, 2022. It really wasn't ready in 2017. Like there was no NVIDIA support whatsoever, and I don't know, but they did that for an entire like off-scale Ubuntu release, and then they immediately switched back to Xorg first. So I think War Thunder, you were talking about earlier, that maybe for the LTS they'll go back to the regular GNU Core utils. We'll see if that happens. It wouldn't be the first time, so it would be interesting. So my next question for you guys, and I know, Fraggle, you talked about this earlier, but we'll open it up to everybody else. What do you think the actual history? What do you actually think the future of Rust in the kernel actually is? Do you think that it will slowly, just as it becomes more featureful, take over more things, or will always be primarily C, and then Rust will just kind of do the things that that Rust is good at, things like drivers and error management and things like that. So D-Dubs, go ahead.
I think a lot of it will be based on the results and who's actually doing the work. Linus is not going to be there forever.
Take that back, man. He's immortal. We know it.
Yeah, well, and I don't have to worry about it because I'll be long gone. So it's kind of going to have to prove itself, like anything. Whether it's the language or whatever, whether it's Wayland or, it has to prove itself, and people have to use it and like it, and it has to work. Basically, back to what your point was earlier, it has to be, feature parity and have a benefit. So time will tell.
It's going to be interesting because Linus seems to be more. He's cautious about it, but he's very open to Rust's participation in the kernel, right? Whereas if you hear some of the writings from some of his underlings, the guys who are below him in the organization, they're much more anti-Rust than he is. So because he's not actually immortal, and eventually he'll retire, and some of those guys who run him will then become, at least presumably, in charge of the project. It'll be interesting to see how that change in the guard changes the Linux kernels in general's attitude towards Rust. Because not one of the things that it flares up, so it's not like constant fighting over Rust being in the kernel, but every once in a while you'll see in the Linux mailing list, them having a kerfuffle about the whole thing. And there's always quite a few very strong voices opposed to it. And those guys are usually some of the ones that are very high up in the developer string. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of changes, and if it will come around to the point where, do we see less Rust in the future after Linus is gone, or will Rust have already kind of been too ingrained to switch out or whatever? I don't think that they'll get rid of it completely, but it'll be interesting to see how that attitude changes over time, because I think Linus's attitude right now is very like what it needs to be. Like he could have been the biggest graybeard ever and just like, nope, sorry, it's C. We're doing C. We're never gonna bring in any other languages. Period. It's gonna be C forever. But instead, he says like, yeah, okay, we're gonna test the waters here, see what it is. We'll let it come in on the fringes. How do the things that it's driver support and things like that. I think that was the proper way of doing things. So, but we'll see how that changes over time. Drew, go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree. Basically, one of the things that I think is important, and we already kind of touched on, is the fact that you got a lot of new developers out there, and if you want to start appealing to the newer developers, you're going to have to use some of their tools. That's just a fact. I mean, if granted, I mean, C's been around a long time, will continue to be around for a long time, but if you want to start incorporating like higher level younger developers in there, then you're going to need to start incorporating their tool set as well. And to your point, Matt, driver bugs are the biggest source of kernel crashes, and that's just a fact. So having memory saved software can really help. And writing in C is apparently a little bit on the older side for these kind of drivers. So I think I'm just kind of like backing up your point.
I think that C comes down to the fact that it really. Yeah, remember, I'm like you, Drew. I don't know tons about Rust, but my experience with C tells me that there's quite a bit of there's a lot of pitfalls there that you have to really work your way around, and you have to know what you're doing, right? And it feels like C is much more approachable for a lot of people. I don't know if that's actually like the case. I'm sure it's just as complex and whatever as any language can be, but it just maybe because it's new, it feels more approachable. Whereas when I was learning some of my C stuff, I was like, it does what way? Why does it do it that way? It's just
hard, right?
Yeah, it's like what is going on here? Like that doesn't make any sense. So, my general feeling of Rust is that it's just a little bit more approachable, and that's part of the not all the reason, but part of the reasons why a lot of people have adopted it.
One of the things I wanted to mention really quickly is that I don't really when I look at code, sometimes I don't understand, especially when you're talking about something very verbose, like a Lua, like if I'm looking at Lua, for example. Now, I have looked recently at Tony BTW, a YouTuber who is actually building his own window manager. It's for the X11. It's for X11, and it's called OxWM, but it is written in Rust. And I gave it a shot, and I'm looking at his code, and it's really stinking clean. And understanding it to me was a little bit more. I understood it a little bit better than other programming language, including Lua, which I have used but don't like necessarily. You know what I'm saying?
I want to see. I wonder if anybody's actually. This just popped in my head as you were talking about that. I was like, I wonder if anybody's writing Vim in Rust. I don't know why that popped in my head right then, but it did. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna butcher your name the entire time, so I apologize.
Yeah, that's fine. So, kind of to follow on Drew's point here, Rust is a great way to appeal to new developers. I don't disagree with that, but I think it was done a little too early in the Linux kernel and on the core utils implementation, because the thing is, you don't want to write core parts of the system in a language, and like 5-10 years from now, it turns out to be like a fad. So what I would like to see is have the Rust programming language be implemented in more of a user-facing way first, get a little mature in that area. So like Cosmic, for example, I would have liked to see Cosmic have 2 or 3 releases and have a vibrant community of developers before starting the Rustification of core parts of the system, like the core utils or the Linux kernel, just to avoid the fact that you may include Rust in the Linux kernel, and then 10 years from now, no one is interested in Rust. It turned out to be just a fad. So that's why I want to see Rust have a more mature ecosystem in the user space first before implementing core parts of the system.
That makes sense. Fraggle, go ahead.
If anybody really wants to try a system that runs off of a straight up Rust kernel, there's Redux OS. It's Rust from the ground up. They've ported a lot of like Unix, Linux apps and stuff like that. They've rewritten some. I think it's Sodium is their kind of alternative to NeoVim or Vim. They use a desktop environment called Orbital. Cosmic works on it because Cosmic is written in Rust for the most part. Like it's decent. It has a long way to go, but it's been around for 10 years now, I think. It started in like 2015. But yeah, it's a full Rust OS, Rust kernel, right from the get-go. So if anybody really wants to try a straight up Rust based system, there is one out there.
I don't know
that you can run.
I don't know if I do. Like, I would need a reason. I think that one of the things, and maybe we can talk about this more later, is that when you're I'm not necessarily a new user, but you're a non-developer Linux user, and you're in the Linux community. You maybe you join LUGs like this, or you're talking about to people on Discord, and the Rust conversation comes up, but you're a non-developer, so you have no skin in the game. I think that a lot of people who are in that situation look at this conversation and like, why, what's the reason, right? Because developers will tell you, oh, it's like memory management, error stuff. It's, faster supposedly, all these things. But what's the user facing benefit? And when you talk about a pure Rust operating system, I'm like, okay, but what does it do that is going to make me want to use it? I don't know.
YouTube review video.
Do it for the clicks, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly. What other reason do you need?
Well, I will check it out then. I ain't gonna say no to clicks. Hip Dad, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I think you had it on point when you said that, about Linus being a visionary, and I believe what's really going on is similar to back in the day when you had QBasic and Basic, and those were becoming outdated slowly, and so then you had other programming languages come in to be more slimlined and easier to code with and more universal. And I think what Linus is doing is he's saying, hey, to himself, he's saying, I'm not going to be around here much longer, and we need to advance into the future coding and the future format for coding, and Rust seems to be the direction. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to work, but he's saying, let's start trying this now and see what problems we come into. And if the problems are not as easily solvable as they are in C, then we can get rid of it. But I would like to be part of that now rather than wait until I retire and I'm no longer available and I no longer have an interest in it. And that way it can be a more stable system going down the line. Because I believe that the way the kernel is developed is probably one of the most ingenious things we have in the world as far as it's consistently developed, it's consistently looked at, it's consistently checked for any kind of intrusive stuff being slammed in there. And Now it is an audit. Well, the king does ultimately control the stuff, but at the same time, he knows what he's doing, and he's been doing it for a long time. So I think he's just preparing for the future. Is what he's doing. Just like everybody said, we our future coders most commonly are probably going to be adapting Rust. So prepare now.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I do want to say that C has been around since 1972, which is longer than a lot of people here have been
So
actually.
have I.
Right. If you poll people in my Discord server, their age, the vast majority of them were born in the 90s and 2000s. So if that makes y'all feel a little old, you're welcome. But C was first released 53 years ago and is still being constantly developed. Like the last release was in October of last year. That's crazy. Like that's bonkers. That's before personal computing was even a thing. So I think the Rust thing is interesting, but we've talked about it a couple times. Like it's just not. It's going to have to be around for 50 years before I will trust it, to be a staying force. Like it has to, because we have seen programming languages that, like Yai was saying earlier, be fads and, move in and out of the public eye. And they still stay around. Like Python is still a huge language. A lot of people code in Python, but it's no longer the meme language anymore. Like it's there. It's actually moved into its older stage where people either they like it or they don't like it, but they've already have their opinion on it. Whereas Rust is still in the situation where people are forming their opinions on it, and that period might take quite a while. D-Dubs, go ahead.
I was going to say that Rust has been around for a while already. One sec. But C solved the problem. As someone who's been around long enough to the early days of C,
Old guy.
it solved the problem of portability. You had all these different processors, all these different systems, but you could take your C code and compile it. That's one of the reasons it is so popular even today. In the earlier days of languages, they only worked on this processor. They were all proprietary. That was a huge problem. And part of the reason it maintains its popularity is because of that huge wealth of code that's already existing, and functions and libraries where you could just pull down from this work and build something very quickly. Those are its strengths. It still has some of the same weaknesses of its original design back in the days of like 4-bit computers, is things like pointers, how it deals with pointers. You could push a C program and your system completely off the rails with a single mistake of a pointer. It does have a lot of issues. And also, if you don't remember to deallocate, then you end up with memory leaks. My last job, where we were developing software for storage, there was a ton of it, almost all of it, written in C, and we constantly chased memory leaks. Constantly. The storage system I worked on even before that was even worse because of the operating system it was using, and it would just have this habit of poking into low memory. Sorry, and then the whole thing crashed. So I look at it from a slightly different point. I know the benefit of C. C++ tried to fix that, but if anybody has done C++, it's not a very friendly language. Rust kind of takes that the next step. That's one of the reasons I think it has the popularity. It solves a lot of problems for you, but it does not automatically solve a problem. It is still up to the person writing the code to make it do something better.
Or Claude. Sorry.
No, we're not talking about Microsoft.
All right. So Milo in the chat has been requesting us to talk about licenses for a minute. I've been avoiding it because I'm not a lawyer or anyone who's actually ever read the GPL from front to beginning. And the vast majority of people aren't. But we'll talk about licenses for a little bit. So the C is GPL, and Rust is Apache and MIT. So anybody here actually know whether that's good, bad, or whatever? Because I don't. I look at a license and immediately my brain goes on vacation. So who here knows whether or not that is a good or bad thing? Greg, go ahead.
Okay, so at the risk of raising anybody's ire, I am a lawyer, and so everything I say.
No,
here
I'm
does not-
I'm sorry. You have to get out. You can't have lawyers here. No, sorry. Go ahead.
Everything I say here does not constitute legal advice.
Oh, we're holding you to it, man.
When you talk about a language having a license, I will just say that, like, if Rust is released under a particular license or C is, that applies to the language. It doesn't obligate somebody, unless the license is very particularly crafted. Using the language wouldn't obligate you to release your code under any particular license. So you could write Rust code and then have it be GPL, right? You just couldn't rewrite. The language itself is a different story than what you write with it. I'm not aware anyway of any licenses like software products where they're like, hey, if you use my tool to make your thing, whatever tool you make has to follow it, which is different than saying like a library or whatever that has one of the GPL, the copyleft licenses. If I'm wrong, I will be happy to stand corrected. And if that is the way certain languages work, where everything you write with it is copyleft, that might be an interesting situation.
D-Dubs, go ahead.
No, I'm pretty sure he's correct. Is it's the copyleft? If you modified GCC, then you've got the derivative work of that would be still copyleft, but the Apache is a little more permissive. So you could make a web browser, web server that, for example, would and then not have to necessarily give the code back. But as far as I know, I agree that if I write a program in Rust, I don't have to give it away. Or C, for example, I don't have to give that away. But if I go and I modify something in C, then yes. I mean, that kind of comes back from the early days of compilers. The most popular one was the Intel C compiler, ICC, because it produced way better code, but it was completely proprietary. My recollection is that's one of the reasons that GCC came to existence. There's a better CC and to be feature rich like ICC.
So Milo's argument is that he said that they want to turn Linux into NetBSD so that they can create copyright commercial only versions like macOS. I'm not sure any of that's true. I don't know enough about the licenses, but I doubt that's. I don't know Mark Shuttleworth like at all, but every time I hear from him, like in a podcast or whatever, he seems like a very forward-leaning FOSS advocate kind of guy. And maybe he's completely different, and he's a shark-based businessman, and but that doesn't seem like the. Maybe I'm naive to think that he's not going to all of a sudden take Ubuntu proprietary. That doesn't seem like thing. Now, and Linus himself seems to be like the godfather of open source. I mean, if it's not him, it's RH, it's Stallman. Like it's one of the two. And Linus doesn't seem like the kind of guy who's going to let something in that's going to automatically take Linux to be the proprietary thing. So I don't think that that's the case at all. But again, maybe I'm naive about it. So let's go ahead and move on to applications. So do you guys have any specific applications that you guys use, like as users, not developers, that are written in Rust that you find a benefit that you find Rust a benefit to, like that you've used and like Rust made this thing better? Do you guys have any examples of that? Because I'm trying to think of one in my life where, you know, this thing is written in Rust, and because it's written in Rust, it's better. And I can't think of earlier. We were talking. I think DW, it was you were talking about when we were talking about the core utils. The utils are better not because they're written in Rust, but because they have different features. Like what it was, LSD, or maybe it's EXA. I guess it is. That's written in Rust, right? But it's not better because it's written in Rust. It's better because it has icons. You know what I mean? That's basically the way that I look at it. So it's I don't know. It's every time we have the Rust conversation comes up, and I'm like, okay, well, what do I use that's written in Rust, which is a lot of things. Are those things better because they're written in Rust? And I don't know that that's the case. D-Dubs, go ahead.
The answer to that is no. It is not Rust, other than, like, say, memory safety. We've talked about those things, but it is simply that someone has taken the time to say, if I want to redo this thing, I'm not going to make it a carbon copy. What's the point? I'm going to improve it. So exactly what you were saying before was the language itself has benefits, but it in itself does not fix any.
I think he randomly muted himself. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from the standpoint that there are some applications that I've discovered and used, and they are written in Rust, right? You know, I think it's more of like they use the moniker written in Rust, but it's like I tend to think maybe without the ability to do it in Rust, the person maybe wouldn't have written the application, you know, like, because that's what they developed it in. And I will say, I've only test driven it, but Cosmic just flies, man. And I'm sure part of that's its rustiness. I'm a KDE guy, but Cosmic's pretty cool.
So what you're saying is your desktop environment is constantly broken? No, I'm sorry.
Don't even start.
I can't. Someone can't mention Plasma without me telling them that it's buggy, even if they don't experience the bugs.
It's just constantly cool. That's I get to change settings like every 2 minutes. It's awesome.
You should. I would say you use GNOME, but everybody would know that I was lying about that too. So I wonder. I haven't used Cosmic yet because I'm not going to use it until it goes to 1.0. But I'm wondering if it's so fast, not because it's in Rust, but more because it doesn't have all the cruft that all the legacy desktop environments have.
Yeah, to D-Dub's earlier point, that might be the case, that they did start from scratch, so they're not inheriting 30 years of junk.
Yeah. Plasma just has a ton of it's like a Christmas tree. Like you guys, you know, like Christmas is on the mind all the time now apparently. But you see a Christmas tree every once in a while. You know, it's some are like very nicely decorated, but eventually somebody comes along and just has all of the decorations on the tree, and it just kind of feels heavy. So I'm wondering if that's the case. Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I actually have an application that I enjoy using it because it's written in Rust, and not because of the language specifically, but again, I very much like Cargo. Cargo made it very easy to install. The application is called Canada. I feel like it has been used as a nugget of the week at some point, but it's basically a way to modify the behavior of some keys on your keyboard to achieve some higher level key binding capability, so to speak. So I actually liked it because Cargo made it very easy to install it on Debian, which is my daily driver. I believe Canada is available in the Arch repos, but it is not. Yeah, I knew you'd like that.
That's the best thing ever.
So basically, Cargo allowed me to install it, and it was extremely painless. Again, I thought it would be a little harder because, you know, usually I get like flat packs when I need applications that are not in the Debian repos, but Canada specifically is not available as a flat pack. So having it available in Cargo made it very easy to install.
Yeah, that's a good. That's the package management of a lot of the newer languages is a boon for a lot of that kind of stuff. Like PyPy has been around for quite a long time, but has its own issues with virtual environments and stuff. So, um, the only problem I've ever had with Cargo is that it hates being added to a path, so it kind of needs its own, which is fine. Drew, go ahead. The hat change, dude, man, just. You're
I had to be on point on that one. I was like,
if you use
yeah,
over the ear
okay, anyway.
headphones, you'd have a hard time because like I couldn't do a hat change that fast because I got the headphones on.
So okay, so the question was, does Rust make any of these projects better? And I don't know. I'm not going to be able to say yes 100%. However, I will say that there's kind of like a showcase Rust application. RipGrep is written in Rust, and that's super stinking fast. And I think your beloved Zoxide, Matt, is written in Rust. So there's that. The other things that are on my mind that are kind of written in Rust, I think Alacrity is now written in Rust, and there is a newer text editor called Zed that is written in Rust, very stinking fast. Now, would I give up Genie to Go to use Zed? I think only if I wanted the AI integration would I do that. But since I don't, then no. But because this Zed text editor has integration with Claude, for example, is an interesting kind of like project that I'm continuing to look at. And your beloved Firefox, Matt, has many components that are written in Rust as well. So that's important to know.
They are saved. Like they are going to rule the browser world because they have But then you think, there's a good chance that Chromium has a lot of Rust stuff too.
100%. 100%.
It turns out anybody can do the Rust thing. Firefox, you're not special.
I would say that actually, if I had to guess, Google was kind of like the out in front for the Go programming language. And I don't know if that's something that they're continuing, but I would imagine they have like their hand in everything anyway. So, but Go, and then interesting, like the nearest thing that we have in terms of programming languages to C is Zig. And that is interesting. The only reason why I know that is because of Ghosty, the terminal that's written in Zig, that's really, really popular these days. So, yeah.
I guess just to go to the thing that I was talking about, the question I asked was, the applications, and that made me think about like, is there a programming language that actually like that you seek out those applications like oh my god, that's written in Python, therefore I'm going to go use that application. I mean, like it feels like, and the reason why I think is an interesting conversation is because Rust has become a meme. Like, it's written in Rust, therefore, a lot of the people will make fun of it because it's written in Rust, and obviously you only chose Rust because it's the popular thing, right? And it got me thinking, like, is there a programming language that has such an influence on the end product that I would choose it over something else? And I don't think that it just feels like I just want to go use a tool. I don't really care what it's written in as long as it works. And I think that's where the vast majority of, I think everybody's at. Like if you're different, raise your hand and let me know, because I mean, like, it feels silly to have a conversation from a user's perspective on what a thing is written in, unless it affects the thing that it's written, that you're actually using. And
would it be more extensible because it is written in a specific programming language? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it feels like, oh, wow, I'm good at this. Maybe I can add to the project, but I don't know that anybody kind of like seeks out those projects. You know what I'm saying?
You know what we should have done was we should have put, what I should have done, I guess, because I'm the guy in charge. I should have put out a call for someone who actually knows what they're talking about. If only I'd found one of those Rust developers, but I've never actually met one. I'm not sure they actually exist. It's probably just all Claude. I don't know. Steve, go ahead.
Okay. First things first. To Yahya's point, yes, Rust has a nice advantage that if you're working with Rust and you need Rust dependencies, Rust or Rust up, a cargo basically. Cargo takes care of installing its own dependencies away from your system package manager or whatnot. That's a benefit of Rust. That's a major benefit of Rust. And as to your point, next time let me know beforehand if you want a Rust developer. I can snatch 3 of them. They do exist. And there is an application that is better because it uses Rust. It's an application that is up and coming. It's not out yet. Okay, if anybody wants to say anything bad about Arch, do it now, because I'm going to be talking Arch because I'm an Arch person and I will die on a hill using Arch. So it's an Arch package manager. It's a new one called Umbrel Core, created by your namesake, Matt number 2, as I call him. But Matt's creative is working on a Arch package GUI package manager using Rust, and I've used it. I've been testing it for him, and it's the fastest one I've seen on Arch yet. The GNOME one, piece of shit. The Cosmic one is amazing because it's written in Rust. So this one is on par with the Cosmic one. And it also has a kernel manager included, but that's a bonus. That's for the advanced users. But it installs packages. It generates a list of installed packages. It finds packages really quickly because it's written in Rust. I have used a lot of GUI package managers in my day, and this is the fastest one I've seen, next to the Cosmic one. That's the best one I've seen yet. So yeah, Rust has a lot of benefits. Now, to D-Dubs' point, yes, I see it as the situation currently as it stands. I see it currently like Wayland versus X11. It's a new thing, relatively new thing that finally people are using, are adopting. So, but it's not yet fully baked to be used by default by everyone. But we need more people to develop more apps using Rust for the language to grow. We need more people to report issues. More people. This is the only way something grows. So there should be distros, not stable distros, not Debian, not Ubuntu, but bleeding edge distros where users know they're using a bleeding edge distro to test. So basically, we are the guinea pigs. If we do our job correctly and we report all the issues and everything, Rust will grow and become more stable and more usable as a de facto language. So, but yeah, everybody here is making a lot of good points. There's nothing to disagree with. We're all making good arguments and good points. And yeah, Rust will be something good for the Linux world. For the FOSS world. It's going to be a good addition. It's a very good language, and I foresee good things for the future, but it's not ready to be used as a de facto language.
Let the arch bashing begin.
Yeah, use NixOS. It's a real distro. Black Don, go ahead.
So I was gonna agree with you, Matt, that I don't feel like many people like care what the actual language is written in, because I actually used Z editor and I didn't know it was written in Rust, but I do love the editor itself. But I can't say I use it because of Rust, obviously, because I didn't even know it was written in that. I even did a video on it and I didn't know. So to that point, I feel like there's got to be more to it, because the trend I've been seeing here is it's just faster. Like everybody says, oh, this app runs super fast because it's written in Rust, but like my question is, what are the actual other benefits, to it?
Yeah, I can't answer your question, but I think my problem with everything is like everyone says Python is slow, and and I code in Python. I'm like, it doesn't seem slow, but then I'm the guy who used Zipper for 2 years, and I was like, this is fine, perfectly fine. So I don't think that I'm the type of guy who can judge and say, you know what, this thing is faster. Because if it takes 40 milliseconds longer than, or if it's 40 milliseconds faster than the other thing, I'm not gonna notice because I can't. My watch doesn't work in those those units. It has to be significantly. It has to be very slow for me to notice. Like my startup time right now is horrendously slow for some reason because of an NFS problem, and like that I notice, and that's because it takes 3 minutes for my computer to turn on. That I'm gonna know. If it was like 100 milliseconds, I ain't gonna notice. So for I think some people are ultra sensitive to those milliseconds that you can kind of eke out because of Rust or whatever, and I'm just not. So I don't know. So the next question I have for you guys is, do you think that Rust is a fad? Like, do you think that 10 years from now Rust will still be as popular as it is now, and it has the staying power of C or Python, even because Python's been around for a long time, or any of the other languages that have endured, or is it something that's just going to be, it's been around for a long time now, but it's having its moment over the course of the last couple of years. But is that going to fade away? Hip Dad, go ahead.
2 years ago, I would have said, yes, it's just a fad. Well, 2 years ago, I probably did say, yes, it's just a fad. I might not have said it out loud, but I probably said it to myself when I was talking to myself. But yeah, it's now it's getting a foothold. It's like the neighbor that wants to get in your house just because they think you're cooking some good food and they want some of it, but you don't want them to come in, and they keep coming over, knocking on the door, knocking on the door, knocking on the door. Then they start giving you things to, hey, I'll give you $2 to open the door, and they just keep getting better and better at trying to con you into opening the door. But I think Rust is getting better and better as far as that goes. It's similar to Wayland. I mean, 3 years ago, I told you to shove Wayland, where the sun wouldn't even try to shine. But now I'm loving it. So yeah, I would say it's not a fad anymore. I think it was originally, but not now.
Drew, go ahead.
I mean, to your point before, I mean, with Torvalds accepting it in the kernel, I mean, that tells you all you need to know. I mean, I don't think that that's not hype. That's Torvalds and maintainers making a pragmatic decision after years of evaluation. They didn't just wake up one day and go, let's put something new into the kernel. That just would never have happened. They spent a long time considering what they were going to do going forward. It wasn't just like flavor of the month. That was never going to happen. And because of that, I think we're going to see sustained growth over the next decade, because that's where the kernel is going. That's where a lot of infrastructure is being, systems programming and performance critical infrastructure is being rewritten in Rust. And so, no, it's not a fad. It's not going anywhere. Granted, people, we could argue whether it's too soon, But I can tell you this. I mean, Linus doesn't do anything that is like spur of the moment. It takes a long time for him to kind of like say, oh, yeah, that's good. But it's definitely here to stay.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem, and someone in the chat said this, that part of the reason why Rust has become, a meme is simply because, YouTubers have talked about it so much. And it's rare, I think, that programming languages get a spotlight like Rust has. And because of that, it's treated different than a lot of the other programming languages that are out there or become new. Like, when I think when Go first came on the scene, I don't, maybe it's just because when it came out, social media and YouTube wasn't as big as it was now. I don't even know when Go came out, but maybe that's the reason why it didn't. But it feels like any new programming languages that are coming out, they don't get the social media fans that Rust did. And because that happened, people treat it a lot different than a normal language. And eventually, I think the social media aspect and the fanboyism of Rust will die down, and that will cause the people who are detractors to go down. Because you guys notice that, and maybe this is something that we should talk about, that the biggest detractors of Rust haven't touched Rust at all. Like they have a lot of them at least have no programming languages. Now, some detractors obviously, they know what they're talking about. But like if you're on like random X user and you're like, Rust sucks, chances are you've never touched Rust. Because usually when you say something is bad, you have a reason behind it, other than you don't like the popular thing. So what do you guys think? You think that there are reasonable reasons not to use Rust? Like that it's just not, the downsides of Rust, I guess, is something we should say. Drew, go ahead.
No, I was just kind of trying to add on a little bit more, like, about 10 or 15 years ago, like there was this Ruby on Rails was all the rage. And I remember one of the company that I work for, actually a sister company of ours, started programming everything Ruby on Rails. Well, that doesn't, other than a few like large projects, that's gone. That's gone. In fact, I think actually GitHub is written on Ruby on Rails. That's interesting. But so to the point though, one of the things that that Rust is not is Ruby on Rails. Because of everything that we kind of talked about. But overall, I was going to say, Matt, what was your question? You just said something that was really made me think. What was the question you just said?
I asked about the downsides of Rust. Like, what are if we look at the technical aspects of reasons why it's not good, what would those be?
Yeah. I think it's harder to program in Rust than it is in some of these other kind of fad-like. I don't want to say fad-like. That's just not right. Because to your point, I remember this is what you said. You said you didn't know how long Go had been around, and it's not been 10 years, but it hasn't been 5 years either. So it's somewhere between 5 and 10 years.
It was developed by Google, right? Go
I believe
a
so.
Google project.
Yeah, because it was simple. They wanted to get through. They wanted to get stuff done in a very, very simple and simplistic way. And so, they ended up like developing Go. And it's really stinking good. I remember the guy, what's his name? Now I was going to say Primogen, but that's not right. There was a guy that was doing everything on Go. Well, even Hugo, Matt, is a very good project that a lot of people use. So written in Go. But the 10-year mark, I think, is kind of like gets you over that kind of like fad, that fad meme, if you will. So Go will be around maybe even longer than it's not fad like, I guess, is what my point. So
Anybody else have like actual downsides of Rust? Because like I don't know. My problem with basically everything I've said today is like I don't know what I'm talking about. So, um, it's hard for me to say like yeah the it's bad at for loops. Like I don't know if that's true or not. You know, so it's hard for me to say with the technical reasons why it may not be a good thing. Yeah, go ahead.
So just because it recently happened, the Debian announcement that they will be using Rust in core parts of their infrastructure, and they won't, as a result of that, they won't be able to support as many architectures as they could. I think this is a very valid technical downside to Rust. It is not just as widely supported. Now, granted, this is on very ancient hardware, but still, this hardware might still be useful. And we know that Linux is used in some very ancient setups. So I think this could be one of the downsides of Rust, but it's not really that concerning. Again, if you wait until the 10-year mark, like Joe was saying, I think this would be much less of a problem, but I think it's kind of a problem right now.
Yeah, that's interesting that it doesn't, because I think somebody else mentioned that earlier that there's the reason why it won't ever take over the Linux kernels just because it doesn't support nearly as much in terms of hardware as C does. I wonder if that is that an actual like hard technological limitation, or if it's just because it doesn't yet. Like will there become a time like 10 years from now where it supports just as much as C does? It just needs to be written. And the reason why it doesn't support all like the really old stuff is just because a lot of people like why would you write the floppy disks implementation in the Linux kernel in Rust? I mean, like why would you do that? Maybe that's the reason why Rust doesn't support it, just because it doesn't make sense. Whereas it's the technical, there's not an actual technical reason why it can't support it, it just doesn't. I don't know the answer to that question. I just don't know enough about it. So personally for me, it took me forever to learn Python, like forever, and even now I'm like the noobiest person at Python ever. And it took me forever to learn the little bit of C that I know. And my thing is like when I learn a language, it takes me forever, and I don't know that I see the need to learn another one. So I guess the question I have for you guys, those of you who are either developers or programmers of whatever degree that you are, have you written Rust, or are you interested in learning to code in Rust? Anybody here interested in actually picking up their text editor and starting on a Rust program? Steve, go ahead.
Yes, of course. Since the applications for my distro are becoming relevant, I will have to learn, because I cannot keep relying on a tertiary person, third-party person, whenever I need to update the code. So I am, as soon as I get back home, I'm going to begin I'm going to be paying to learn Rust. I'm not planning on getting a certifications or anything. Just there's a paid small lessons, paid lessons to learn Rust from scratch. So I'll begin learning Rust because I have to maintain by necessity, not because I want to. It's by necessity, because now Zero Linux is growing and we're getting more tools written in Rust. So I'll have to maintain them, and I'll have to create new ones myself without having to rely on anybody else. I'll have to become self-sufficient. And because I see good things with Rust, it's not a fad. Like like everyone said, it's the future. It's a new thing for the. It's not a new thing. I keep saying new thing. It's something that's good for the future. It will keep growing, like Wayland is growing, like everything else is growing. So yeah, I'm gonna be learning Rust, and I'm eager to do so because I'm not a developer. I don't know Python. I don't know C. I don't know anything. I'll be learning something from completely scratch with absolutely no knowledge of anything prior to it. So it's going to be fun. I hope so, and we'll see what happens going forward.
Anybody else interested in picking up Rust as a programming language? War Thunder, go ahead. Oh, we can't hear you. You want to know what? I don't think we've had a single lug, and this is like our 30th lug or something crazy, where we haven't had at least some Linux audio problems from someone. So, put that on the bingo card. The thing is, he's unmuted, so we should be able to hear him. You're no, still no. We'll come back to you. Anybody else have a interest in picking up Rust? Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, so I, to the extent I do the type of programming that Rust I think is best for, which is sort of direct hardware interaction, it's ESP32 or Arduino controllers, that kind of stuff. And that's primarily, if I'm not just completely cheating and using ESP Home, I'm doing C++, but I would be interested in I have the books. So yes, they're bunches of pieces of paper glued together with a cover, and about Rust. And I'm sort of interested in, like, because I know there is some ability to code for ESP32 using Rust, and the idea that it's quote memory safe, and well, not quote, it is memory safe, and that it's maybe easier to grapple with than some of the more arcane structure or syntax of C++ and C, makes me interested to look into it. But I don't know how hard I'm going to do that, because it's just sort of a sideline for me. So I'm not like, I wouldn't call myself a dev. I like to dabble in those microcontrollers.
I have. I always look at the microcontrollers and the single board computers and stuff, like, oh, that sounds like something that I should get into, and then I realized, like, I don't know anything about them or what I would use them for. Maybe I'm not as big a Linux nerd as I need to be, because I was always looking, like, I watch Jeff Geerling and he does all these cool things, like, and I, like, that sounds like fun, but I'm not. I was like, I don't know what I would use it for. Anyways, anybody else have anything to say on Rust before we close this out? We're gonna wrap this thing up. Going once, twice. Okay. First thing, I watched Hip Dad type on his computer, and I found that utterly fascinating. It was like fingers. I'm sorry. I was like, well, that's how, like, I don't know why I thought it was funny. War Thunder, did you get your microphone fixed so you can say what you wanted to say?
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think Firefox had a problem because I literally closed the browser, reopened it, and now it's. I usually don't use the browser to do it.
Drew, the whole Rust thing in Firefox, turns out didn't fix it.
Nope, not even close. No, all I was going to say is I'm not a programmer and whatnot. I have dealt with some VBA at work because we do ungodly things with Excel. I'll just leave it at that. But I did learn in college some C to get through. I'm not sure why it was a required class for an engineer, but it was. And I did learn some Python along the way. And I do a lot with Bash right now, especially in my dot file scripts I use and whatnot. I did decide that next year I would like to learn a language that I don't know now, or at least try, just to have something else that it's just something I want to do, just to have options on the table, because there are things that Rust can do better that I'm not even going to say that I'm good at Bash or I'm good at C or I'm definitely terrible at Python. So maybe for something like that, it might be better for me to know a little bit of Rust because I might be able to more easily do something that's not, going to set my system on fire.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I don't think I've never met a programming language that actually set a computer on fire. I'm
I mean, technically Garuda set T420 I had on fire, but it wasn't Garuda's fault though. I had a fly that actually flew in and got under the keyboard, and it shorted across the capacitor on the board, and it actually caused the cap to
That-
actually like spark.
That's the most War Thunder thing I've ever heard.
I refused like Garuda Linux for like 2.5 years because of that. Just as like I can't install it again; it might set my laptop on fire.
Well, if there's ever a reason not to install a distro. Hip Dad, go ahead.
Okay. What's the issue with me typing on my keyboard? That's what you do on a computer. You type on the keyboard.
It wasn't that you were typing; it was how you were typing.
What?
You use your index fingers primarily. I don't know if maybe you didn't notice this. That you
I don't have all my index fingers.
Well, fine. Maybe it was your middle finger. I found it
Yeah,
fascinating.
it was this one. It was this one.
I can't help it. I was just watching. I was like, that's just, it's fascinating. I don't know. I'm the type of guy.
Well, the other thing you didn't notice is I look at the keyboard while I'm typing.
Well, it's, I don't do that, but I remember when I did have
then what you're going to have to do is all the spare keyboards you were talking about that you don't need anymore, you can ship them down to Ohio. It's not that far. Or me and Josh can come and get them.
You can't have my keyboards. I did buy a new keyboard, by the way.
I know. I seen.
My Dactyl died. I had to buy a new one.
I understand.
All right. Anyways, I think now that we got into keyboards, it's time to stop it. So we are going to end that here. So for those of you who watch us live, thank you so very much for watching us live. We do appreciate it. And you can join us if you want the next time. We do 2 Linux users groups every month. The first one is this one. It's 11:15 a.m. on the second Thursday of the month. The second one is the fourth Thursday of the month at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time. Now, the next one does happen to fall on Thanksgiving, and originally I told Drew, I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that, but I've decided that we will hold it. We're going to go ahead and go through with it, mostly because, all the family stuff should be done by that time. So
people are looking for it out. They're like, I'm gonna do this. Like, do I really want to hang with my 6 cousins or attend the Linux users group? It's easy, guys.
Yeah.
Easy.
I will warn you though. There's a good chance that tryptophan will make appearance in that. And I'll just like, I'll probably start snoring halfway through. So we may do an open mic night that night and just let the topic be, loosey-goosey. But anyways, 2 lugs every month. If you want to join us, you can do so. You don't have to talk. You can just join the group and leave your microphone muted the whole time. Or you can watch us live because I always do live stream it. So either way, join us. We have a good time. I also, if you want to help us choose the topics, I post a poll about a week before every lug. You can join the Discord, get a link for that, and vote. I don't put that poll anywhere else other than Discord simply because people vote on the topic and then they don't show up to talk about it. So the last time I made it like a public poll, they chose like a really weird topic and then like 4 people showed up. So it's much easier if you're going to actually vote on it, at least have an idea that you might participate in some way, fortunately, even if it's just watching live. So that is it for this time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.